Welcome to the Millennovator podcast, episode 16. Just because you go to law school or grad school or any other form of higher education does not mean you cannot get into the tech entrepreneur game.
When I think about younger folks who are interested in being an entrepreneur, it can be tempting to think you sort of have to lay out this master plan where you're going to do step A, and then you're going to do step B, and then you're going to sort of arrive at the destination. And I think I'm a prime example of, sometimes you just got to take what comes and benefit from the experiences that you have, whatever they are. And all of it will sort of work out in the end.
You're listening to the Millennovator podcast, where we host the most innovative millennial entrepreneurs, and you learn the secret tips, proven tricks, and profitable tools they have picked up from entrepreneurial infancy to straight up business empire, and every stage in between. And now, your hosts and money Millennovators, Jonathan and Will.
Give me the mic, not down, blow right down. I'm trying to get it not down, blow right down. You trying to get it not down, blow right down.
So, this past weekend, my buddy, my friend, my business partner, Will DeShazo, asked me a question that every young Southern gentleman always wants to hear. Hey, Jonathan, would you want to go to the Bama game this weekend? And of course, I said a resounding
Yes. So, we made our way to Tuscaloosa.
It was awesome.
But there was a bit of an issue on the front end of that.
There was.
And your wife may totally freak out to know this, but I guess you should share it with her on air for these thousands of our listeners to hear with you.
So my wife actually has her own business. She cuts hair and she works.
She cuts my hair.
She cuts your hair. She cuts my hair.
Unfortunately, our listeners cannot see that. If you go to millennovator.com, you can see plenty of pictures of my face.
Those fly cuts that we got going on. But she works like a half day on Saturday. So the catch was I could go to the game, but I had to get a babysitter for my 2.5-year-old.
Perks of
on Saturday.
entrepreneurship.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I was having a little bit of trouble. Let's just be honest.
Look, dude, tell it like it is. You weren't having trouble. You were freaking out.
I went through my whole list of
You'd
people.
gone through like your whole paperback list of people to call, family, friends, everybody.
All my usuals, some of my unusuals, but finally, my future brother-in-law, as of March 31st, 2018, stepped up and said, I'll do it.
Thanks, Tai Tai.
Thank you, Tai Tai.
However, this leads us to our interview today. We're not just sharing this information
Very significant.
to you for no reason. Today, we had the opportunity to interview Tommy Mayfield. Now, that name may not ring a bell to you today, and that's okay.
But it will in the
But
future.
let me tell you, it will. So many of you guys are using new applications in this sharing economy, whether it's Rover for dog sitting or Uber or Waiter, something that delivers your apps.
You're one of those other apps that ends in "er."
Right. Yeah, good point. Wendy does not, by the way.
Unique.
Kudos to you, Tommy, and those of you that are using Wendy. Wendy hooks you up as a father, as a mother, hooks you up with a qualified babysitter, somebody who's gone through a super in-depth background check, or even somebody who has the same hobbies as you and interests as you, the same religious beliefs as you. It doesn't matter. Wendy hooks you up with that person, blasts out an email to them. They can sign up. The scheduling is done there. The payment is all done through the app. The reminders are done through the app. Ratings, reviews, everything is done through the app for you.
It's so clutch.
Not to mention, they're giving all these college girls, and I think it's just girls on the app that are Wendy's, jobs left and right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would really recommend you guys go check it out. And after you hear the interview, you'll definitely want to. But the app platform itself is just so clean and easy to use. That's what I like
It's
about
beautiful. My fiance Haley continues. In fact, we were driving around town and we saw a Wendy sticker. My fiance Haley continues to compliment their beautiful branding and marketing. And yeah, the app is flawless. But the point is, you see an app like this and you think, wow, whomever owns this has been in this tech world for a long time, has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in backing. Look, Tommy did not start in the tech field.
Nope.
He and his wife went to Vanderbilt. Tommy went and got a law degree at UVA and actually was practicing law for like 5 or 6 years prior to even coming up with this idea. And he took the idea in less than 24 months from a seed concept to now, gosh, they're expanded in over 5 cities.
And it's awesome.
And they've got hundreds of Wendy's on there, hundreds of parents on there, just utilizing this technology to make their lives simpler. And it all started from your problem, Jonathan, that you had before we went to the Bama game, which was running through that traditional old list of Peggy Sue's grandmother's aunt's cousin's neighbor to babysit your child.
I'll be honest with you. I still use the old school way, and I'm embarrassed.
Yeah, you should be embarrassed. For those of you listening, be sure to check out Windy. That's WYNDY. They are a super, super bomb app. We can't wait for you to hear this interview with Tommy, who started out, like I said, this was a seed idea. Started in a Facebook community.
And cool name. The way he came, I really like the way they came up with a name for the concept.
Listen out to that in the interview. You ready to listen to this again, man?
Yeah. Wasn't there one more thing that we wanted to talk about before?
Ooh, there was.
Oh, yeah.
The power pitch.
Power pitch.
So, for those of you who are new listeners, or for those of you who have not been tuning in, shame on you recently, although our numbers haven't shown it. But we don't miss you, but we do miss you. Come back. Listen, we are implementing a brand new segment called the Power Pitch. This is your opportunity to be on our podcast, promoting and pitching your business. Now, this is not a sales pitch competition. This is how can you master your elevator pitch best.
Yeah, we keep slipping up and saying power pitch competition, but it's really not a competition at all.
It's not as competition as much as it is. Jonathan and I love listening to your business ideas. Every single day we get in the office and we listen to these voicemails. We totally dig them. They're so cool. Jonathan, how can people leave us a voicemail?
Well, you go to millennovator.com, first of all. That's 2 L's, 2 N's. And you'll notice on the right side of the page, there is a blue little, what would you call that?
I would call that a button.
A button? I would call it a bar button. It kind of looks like a bar, but it's a button. And you click on that and you can leave us a voicemail, essentially. And in that voicemail, we want to hear your pitch. Now, there are a few rules. Number 1, we want that pitch to be 90 seconds or less.
Yes. Some of you have emailed us saying they can do it in 13 seconds. I challenge you to give us your elevator pitch in 13 seconds. That's bold.
Yep. But really, we just want to hear your elevator pitch and just hear your story and hear what your business idea is. And it's funny because we actually had a buddy of ours in the office today, and he actually had an idea over the weekend that he thought of. And so he started to tell us, and Will kind of inquired on, hey, tell us a little bit more. And he just kind of like real quick, well, why do you want to know?
Yeah.
We promise we're not going to try to steal your ideas. We actually want to feature you on our show. It's a great way for you to not only practice your pitch, but also get your idea out there. You never know who's listening. You know, you might have some investors, some people who want to back you or have a way to add on to your idea. So really looking forward to hearing them. And we really encourage you to go to millennovator.com and share those with us.
Keep in mind, this does not have to be your full-time hustle. Many of you listening are like, look, dude, I have a full-time job. I'm just doing this thing on the side and kind of making some money off of it. That is cool. That is the majority of our community, is people just like you. We want you to share that regardless of if you're filing those taxes as a sole proprietor 1099, if that's your full-time job, or let's be honest, if you're not filing them at all and you're just getting some cash revenue here and there, that's fine. We want to hear your pitch. So yeah, go to millennovator.com, look at the bar button on the right side of the page. Every single page on our site has that bar button. Click it and then click record. You can do this on mobile. You can do this on desktop. You can do this on your tablet. Wherever you are, it will pick up your native microphone and you can record your elevator pitch in under 90 seconds to be featured on our show. Seriously, guys, it's one of our favorite times of the day when Jonathan and I go through these elevator pitches and listen to them. You are so brilliant, and you're so much more brilliant than you really give yourself credit. I promise you that. So head over to the site and leave your elevator pitch. We want to hear it. You ready for this interview?
I'm ready.
Let's dive into the interview with Tommy Mayfield and Wendy Renow.
One time I got a show to do, and if you love hip hop, I'm about to perform for you.
Welcome to the best part, my most favoritist part of the podcast, Jonathan, the interview section. We are sitting here with Millennovator Tommy Mayfield, founder of Wendy. Tommy, explain to people what Wendy is, and it's not spelled with an I, by the way.
That's right, WYNDY. Wendy is a mobile app that connects parents and college babysitters. So think Uber for babysitting.
Uber for babysitting. That should be like your tagline.
Yeah, Uber might have some problems with that.
Yeah, they've got a lot of problems on their own. I don't think that you
Yeah.
want to exactly be Uber, but no, I'm with you. And Tommy, you and I chatted a while back about how you're kind of pushing back the frontiers of ignorance, the way that people think, the way that people perceive. And you're kind of, in some regard, innovating in otherwise super stagnant space. That's why I wanted you on this show today. So talk a little bit about like how your market thinks and perceives and traditionally seeks what you offer. Because that's how you found yourself starting Wendy, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I guess it was about a year ago, so November of 2016, I'd gotten to know another founder of a tech startup, Bellhops, which is an on-demand moving app. And so in getting to know Cameron, he had talked about, disrupting a traditional market, in his case, the moving space. And my wife and I were both busy working parents. We had 2 young kids, and it just occurred to us like there is no more traditional market than the babysitting space. Most parents like us were still using the same technology that parents were using when we were in college in the early 2000s, which was not a lot of technology.
I was going to say,
What
which
was
is
that?
pen and paper,
Texting or-
texting.
Basically, yeah, meeting people through offline relationships, adding them to your phone, texting a bunch of people to try to find a babysitter, and then stopping by the ATM late at night or scrounging around for the checkbook to pay the sitter. So we just kind of felt like there's got to be a better way to do this. We're living in a world with Uber. We're living in a world with Shipt. We're living in this world where we expect, convenient services that meet a lot of our basic needs. And when we looked around at the market, while there are some incumbent players in the space, we just felt like no one has done this the way that I, as a parent, want it done for me. So that was sort of the genesis, was really trying to just solve our own problem.
I think that you're not the only one who stumbles upon a business idea that way, right? But it wasn't always this way for you, and that, or has it always been that way, and that you wanted to be a business owner? Like, have you always been entrepreneurial?
I would say, so my father is an entrepreneur, so I do think some of that runs in my veins. But no, previously I've had a very interesting sort of career path and resume. And that's one of the things I think when I think about younger folks who are interested in being an entrepreneur, it can be tempting to think you sort of have to lay out this master plan where you're going to do step A, and then you're going to do step B, and then you're going to sort of arrive at the destination. And I think I'm a prime example of, sometimes you just got to take what comes and benefit from the experiences that you have, whatever they are. And all of it will sort of work out in the end. So for me, I graduated from college, moved back to Birmingham. I spent some time here in Birmingham, then moved to DC, and actually spent a year working for an international human rights group called International Justice Mission. Incredible organization. They have teams of lawyers and investigators and social workers overseas who basically help rescue people from various forms of injustice. So whether that's sex trafficking, slavery, you name it. Really compelling work. So I spent a year there and then decided to go to law school. So I went to law school, graduated in 2009, and then moved back to Birmingham and practiced law at a fairly large firm here in town for almost 7 years before deciding to take the plunge into Wendy. The idea of entrepreneurship and the idea of sort of getting to be creative about solving problems is something that I've always been interested in, but I was not someone who graduated from college saying my goal in life is to be an entrepreneur. Yeah.
Well, and we had several episodes back with a guy named Ricky White. I think it was episode 14. So Ricky White mentioned that you don't just get an Amex card, a free cup of coffee, like a revolving line of credit. Once you're like, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, right?
I'm gonna be an entrepreneur.
I'm
today.
there, and it's funny because really even a decade ago, entrepreneurship was not as much of a tag name as it is today, right? We could go to school, and anybody who is in college today can go get a quote unquote entrepreneurship degree for whatever that means.
What does that even mean?
Right. And like you mentioned, you're kind of just adding tools to your toolkit throughout life. Really, that to me is the most organic way to become an entrepreneurship. And you kind of stumble into a problem like you did and have a passion to want to solve it. So early on, I got to ask you, like, when were you like, okay, this is a viable idea? And what made it viable?
Yeah, so there were a couple things. Again, that conversation with Cameron Duty, the founder of Bellhops, and sort of that concept of disrupting a traditional space. The first thing that I did when I came up with sort of the idea, the germ of the idea for Wendy, was to go look out into the market. And I frankly assumed that I was going to find that someone had already done this exactly the way it needed to be done. And I was going to be like, well, there's another idea that somebody's already done. And, that's the end of that. But as I started digging into it a little bit, again, there's plenty of competition, but I didn't feel like I found what I was looking for as a parent myself.
Because you were the avatar.
Yeah,
and Jonathan is the avatar.
That's right.
2-year-old.
So we were the target parents, and I do think it's very helpful when you're starting a company if you can be your own target user. Obviously, that gives you some insight that you don't have if you're trying to serve a market that you know nothing about.
Thank you for saying that. That makes all the sense in the world. Being who you want to serve is one of the biggest benefits of starting anything.
One of the things that we saw happening was there were some Facebook groups here in town that were aiming to connect parents and babysitters. And they were literally nothing but a Facebook page. So there were all kinds of problems with them in terms of you didn't really know who was in the group, who was administering the group.
Security behind it even.
Yeah,
right?
even if you were connected with someone, is that person actually a student at this school? Even if they are, what's in their background that I'm not going to know about?
What's the real difference between Craigslist and Facebook at that point?
Exactly. So there were all these problems and inefficiencies, but at the same time, we saw parents start flocking to these pages. And so in a way, those Facebook groups sort of served as our MVP. We were like, here's a product that is full of problems and inefficiencies and drawbacks, and yet people are using it. So it gave us this sense of parents and college students are kind of ready to use technology to address this issue in a way that they haven't before. And so as we sort of observed that, and we were a part of that ourselves, we felt like, there was really an opportunity to, capitalize on that.
Okay, I love that because that was a starting ground, right? How many years ago was that before you decided to launch the app?
So that was probably in the spring of 2016. So it was not that long.
That far.
Wow.
So we sort of observed that growth in the spring of 2016. And that was at the same time that we were sort of starting to think about Wendy as a concept. In November of 2016 is when we decided to kind of take the plunge and give it a shot.
Kick it off. Did you guys utilize the group at all? I know you didn't probably for beta, but did you ask questions in the group? Did y'all kind of probe around in there? Or was it more of just sitting back and looking how people were acting and reactions?
Yeah, a lot of it was just observing it because, again, that's another drawback of a Facebook page is anybody who's a member, everything is just out there for the world to see. And so that was one of the problems that we saw was if I, as a parent, said on the wall, hey, I need a babysitter on Friday night, the first person, a student might respond and say, I'm interested. Maybe a second person would do it. But since everyone could see after there were, 2 students, you didn't really
have that many to choose from.
Nobody else would respond, and 2, even if the second person seemed to be a better fit for you, you couldn't really skip over the first person because they could see that.
It's kind of awkward.
So yeah,
and it's kind of like the quote unquote unseen Facebook rules of these sales, these different local,
trading
basically
sites.
Craigslist on Facebook, where it's well, if you're first, then you get the first right.
Yeah.
And they probably had that carry over into that group, and that's a huge negative.
Yeah. So, and at the end of the day, also, again, we're trusting our kids when we're doing this and getting a babysitter, and we don't just want to trust them to anyone. So even if, my aunt's, neighbor's daughter is the person who is expressing interest, what does that really tell me about them? Not a whole lot.
Right.
So that's part of what we built into the Wendy platform was trying to do this kind of initial, vetting and background check process that we run so that, we're doing that for parents as kind of an initial way for them to feel like this is a trusted platform. They can trust, the sitters who are on it.
So sometimes, and I'm guilty of this, sometimes it's tough to accept criticism. In fact, I have a blog that I've had on our desktop saved forever in our Dropbox folder, Jonathan.
You don't like criticism.
It's tough, man. I love criticism. Don't get me wrong, but it's tough to hear. So how have you guys kind of adjusted and pivoted your model as your audience has told you to? Or are you changing every day? I hope that you are, because if you're not, I'm putting myself up a creek.
Yes, we definitely are. I think, there's a couple of challenges that I think we've run into, and I'm going to sort of answer this in a little bit broader perspective. One is, when you're early on, when you're just starting out, there is one of the challenges you have is like people sort of taking you seriously. I think a lot of people, when I left law practice and said, hey, I'm building this app, people were kind of like, oh, that's a cute little side project. Or, they'd say, are you doing that full time?
Yeah.
And that was,
never heard that.
That was frustrating sometimes to sort of be all in and to really think and believe like, look, yes, we're in Birmingham, Alabama, but we really think like Jones Valley, where we are, can deliver the same level of technology that we expect from Silicon Valley. It's just a matter of going out there and doing it. But the balance that I think we've had to strike, or I've had to strike, is having the confidence that you need to believe that the solution you're offering to the problem you're addressing is the right one, that you kind of understand. You have an insight that you think other people haven't really picked up on, and you're willing to take a risk in moving forward with that, but at the same time balancing that confidence with the humility to learn from people who've gone ahead of you, to receive criticism, and to receive feedback from users. So we've already had numerous instances with Wendy where I thought I knew the best way to deliver this experience, or I knew what our users wanted, and then we had to go get feedback from them and hear actually what they wanted is slightly different. And so we've tried to do our best to have that confidence, but also be open to what our users want, and let's deliver that to them, because ultimately that's what what this is all about.
Well, and that's tough too. I mean, I can speak on that just personally. I want to say that, one, questioning yourself, like, can I actually do this? Like, is this really viable? Is this really going to work? Can I actually be the one? Because it's not like you were babysitting on a regular basis, right? It's not like you had a super large skill set. And now your wife did babysit, but she was long removed from that position. And so there are so many tendencies to go back and say, I just don't know if I should do this, if I can do this. I get those internal thoughts all the time.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, you got to disregard all of that, but not in an ignorant way, because it's very easy. Confidence and ignorance, like you said, like ignorance is not going to get you anywhere as an entrepreneur. You will not change your product. That's stagnant. You will die very quickly. But you're right. There's a huge balance between that confidence that you've got to have and then accepting that critical feedback. So thank you for sharing that, especially to those who are getting started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You've got to know that and implement that every single day and ask, right?
Yeah.
Just ask.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've been so grateful for in this experience is, I've learned so much from people who have gone in front of me, and, in different regards. So I've gained so much from just one, asking people and being so surprised by how willing they are to give me their time and their wisdom and their insight. And, I hope at some point down the road that, I can sort of pay that forward with other folks who are, not as far along in the journey. But yeah, it's amazing when you ask people how often they're willing to help. And so that's been a really, a great experience that's come out of this whole journey.
That's something that, if you remember back to one of our first few episodes, Drew Jackson, that guy is awesome at asking people.
Drew's not afraid to ask
for info, feedback, anything.
And he'll be the first to say that's why he is where he is.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
And I just remember talking to him and just being like, man, this guy is just fearless about asking people. And I respect that. I think that's great advice.
I think that you are one of the first folks that we've had on the show. I'm running through my head really quickly. There may be one or two others who are actually identifying two different markets with their product, right? Mm-hmm. So you have the sitter avatar, and then you have the parents.
Yeah, I can't think of anybody else that we've interviewed.
Have you had difficulty, or have you loved kind of like learning? Because you were once the college kid, and I know your wife is involved with Wendy with you as well. And she was once this college female who may have been looking for side hustle work and that kind of thing. And now you're parents, and you guys have how many kids?
2 kids.
You guys have
daughters.
2 kids. And so you are your avatar, or you were your avatar. Have you kind of built that around yourself, or how did you build the product around those 2 different people?
Yeah, so we have, and I should say, my wife Ginger is really the brains of the operation, so you probably should have had her on rather
Ginger,
than me.
we're going for round 2.
That's right. But yeah, so she was a babysitter in college when we were at Vanderbilt, suffered from a lot of the problems that we felt like we were seeing our college sitters suffer from still today. So, early on when we came up with the idea, we also went out and did some focus groups. So with our friends and other folks that we knew, and sort of asked them, what are the pain points you experience? We had our theories about what they were, but just to validate that.
How similar were those? I want to know.
Yeah, they were. There was a lot of similarities, which again I think goes back to the fact that we were the target users. Mm-hmm. But obviously, if this business was only meeting our needs, it wouldn't go very far. So it was nice to be able to get input from other parents. But then at the same time, we also spent time and did focus groups and interviews with college students, many of whom we had met through other traditional means and had them as babysitters to explore. What are the problems that you face and what are your thoughts about the way you'd like to see those problems solved for you? So that's been really exciting. And we feel like the success of Wendy, if we only meet the demands of one side of the market, it just doesn't really work. So we've tried to be very intentional from day one on saying we want to make parents really happy, but we also really want to serve our Wendy's and give them this opportunity to earn, a viable part-time income that's flexible. They can work around their schedules, and they can also, connect with these great families in their community where they're in school, build those relationships, and really build kind of a living resume. Because we always say, if you can, when you're applying for jobs after graduation, say, I did well in school, I was involved in campus, but I also babysat for 100 families and had a 5-star rating. What you're showing me as a prospective employer is, you know how to manage your time and you know how to work with people. And if you can do those two things, you're basically well on your way to success in any professional field. So we want to help make babysitting something that's worth putting on your resume.
Nice.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that is a cool perspective. Actually, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, I hadn't either. And I think it's something, as a matter of fact, that Ricky White talked to us about in episode 14 again, is just the preparation. I think it's so important, and a lot of people skip over that, but just how you thought of both sides like that and even to that perspective, I think that's super important. Well, I did want to ask you, because we haven't talked about it yet, we keep saying Wendy's and your name Wendy, so I know you might not be the one to credit for this, but tell us where the name came from, because I think it's super awesome.
Yeah, I wish I could take credit for it, but my wife Ginger gets all the credit. It's a nod to Wendy Darling from Peter Pan, who's sort of the surrogate mother and takes care of the Lost Boys. So that's where the name came from.
That's so awesome.
We are the Lost Boys.
I just love anything related to like a Disney movie. So
yeah, actually though, speaking of that, did you see Netflix stock just totally tank a couple days ago because there were rumors that Disney was going in with them, and it just went whoosh.
No way.
Yeah, and I'm like, what's the beef with Disney?
Why are you hating on Disney?
Yeah, exactly. Gosh. So I want to talk about the growth of you guys, because you and really starting local, right? I think that a lot of people. Let's start with that, because, gosh, we all get excited about the word growth. That's fun to talk about. That's fun to envision. That's fun to dream together about. But that can hold you down if you let it, right? So what did you do from the very start? I know that you guys got the app up and running, but how did you help to launch here locally? And how did that kind of fuel the future growth? And then you could start saying, well, now my ideas can turn into realities.
Yeah, so we started in November kind of working on building the app. So there was a lot of that, those first few months were really, getting down into the brass tacks. I'm a big believer that the devil's in the details. So it's one thing at a very high level to say the idea of connecting college students and parents is not that novel. The real challenge is, how do you do that? How do you execute on that idea? And really build it out from a functionality standpoint to where it delivers the quality and the convenience that both sides of your marketplace want. So we spent a lot of time. I had a whiteboard in my house, and I was literally drawing out the workflow and how's the app going to work, and trying to figure out what made the most sense. So we spent a lot of time doing that. We built a website, kind of a landing page, wendy.com. And so we launched that in January. So that allowed parents to start pre-registering and sitters to start applying, because we have an application process. So we kind of started onboarding both sides of our marketplace. We had, kind of about a 90-day runway before we actually launched and turned it on. And that was helpful. So we were able to sort of generate a fair amount of interest on both sides before we went live. But I also think, anyone who's got an idea, especially when you're talking about like a mobile app, it's very easy to sort of think, I'm just going to build this thing and all I've got to do is turn it on and it's going to go, it's going to be the next Instagram.
That was my question. Like, was that a nerve-wracking day? Oh my gosh.
It was. But what I think we have learned
expectations.
Is managing expectations. Yeah. That's very rarely going to be the way that it happens. And I like to say, I don't know about you guys, but the first time, part of the challenge that we have is kind of changing a mindset. When I think about the first time I heard about Uber, I was like, wait, so random stranger is going to pick me up in their personal vehicle and drive me to where I want to go? Like, that seems shady. To say that now sounds ridiculous because, of course, it's become ubiquitous. Yeah. But I remember thinking that, and I remember having conversations with people who also thought that. And it wasn't until I was in Dallas and had a friend who I had to meet someone, and I was visiting him at his house. And I said, man, I bet we better call a cab because I got to be somewhere in like 45 minutes. And he was like, don't worry about it. I'll just book you an Uber. They'll be here in 5 minutes. And when I actually rode in that Uber and it worked, I was like, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. And I think we're kind of in a similar position in the sense that using a mobile app to find childcare is just a novel idea for a lot of people. And the way that they think about it isn't necessarily rational. Again, when they think about, or when I thought about the security and the convenience associated with a Facebook group, and I compare that to Wendy, they don't even really compare. But we still see parents who, because Facebook's been around longer, they have this sort of innate trust in it where they go, mobile app, that seems, I don't know about that. And so one of the challenges that we have is getting people to sort of take that, to take that first step. And usually, just like in my experience with Uber, once you use Wendy, it kind of clicks and you're like, okay, this is what people are going to do in 5 years. Like people, your age who aren't married or who are married and don't have children, in 5 years, if it's not Wendy, it's going to be something else. But no one is going to be meeting someone through, 3 degrees of connection, putting their phone number in the phone, texting them, and writing a check. Like that world is on its way out. So, we're really excited about that opportunity, but obviously it also presents challenges in terms of ramping up.
Changing the mindset of the consumer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think going back to what you're talking about with Facebook, people, they have a comfort level there. But I think you've solved that problem. Again, it's getting people to try it for the first time. But even in your app, correct me if I'm wrong, parents have the ability to communicate with sitters that they're using and different things like that, correct?
Yeah, so the parent is ultimately a decision maker. It's not, unlike Uber, it's not like we assign you a babysitter and send them your way. Mm-hmm. You as the parent are always the ultimate decision maker. And we've really given parents flexibility in terms of how they want to go about booking a job. So parents have the option to post a job in which, in that case, all the sitters can see on the job board, can see the available jobs, and they can express interest and say, I'd like this job. And then parents can select from those who respond. But we also have an option where you can really curate your own list. So, we have all these different filters. So if you're a parent who says, I'm really interested in an early education major at this school who's involved in this campus activity, you can actually, with a click of a few buttons, drill down to that granular level and say, okay, there's 7 people that fit this profile. I'm going to add those people to my list, and I'm only going to offer jobs to those specific people.
That's what I love about your app is it's so customizable. Like you said, there's just so many options. It's not just, like you said, an Uber driver where some rando just pulls up in your, at your house to pick you up. I mean, you have the option to customize it like that. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, not to mention, thank you for doing away with the checks.
Checks.
I like, please, can we all just agree to get rid of that? I mean, and the fact that, I could tell the first time we met, Tommy, I could tell that you were your avatar because you had this sigh of relief when you were like, finally, there's no more late night ATM runs. And I could just totally see like your average 30, 34-year-old couple coming home from a nice dinner together, like someone into an ATM booth, getting out $60 just to pay Cindy. Like, what a pain, right? And you guys have solved that. But I love the idea that, one, you're an innovator, and you can tell that because your market's not quite there. That's not a bad thing. We have to have that in our society, in the overall ecosystem that we live in, which is the entrepreneurial one. We have to have that. You're paving the way. And that to me is more exciting than anything, is like seeing and molding. You get to mold your marketplace the way that you perceive it should be, right? That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that's been really exciting is to see on both sides of our platform, again, babysitting, not a resume builder. It's this very basic transaction. There's not any sort of level of professionalism around it. And what's been really interesting to watch has been by implementing this platform where we have, ratings and we have, social connections where if you come babysit for me and I rate you a 5-star, the app automatically endorses you to all 50 of my parent friends. We're seeing both sides of the platform recognize, man, this isn't just a one-off, I'm never going to see this person again, or it doesn't really matter what they think. We're seeing sort of increased professionalism on both sides, which is really great, because what we love is, we're guilty of this as our own parents, that one of the first Wendy's we had, and we'd been in the babysitting game for a while, we hired them, they came at 5 o'clock, and we'd asked them to stay till 10, and we drove away and we were like, there is no food in our house. Like zero, there's nothing to eat.
Yeah.
And, before Wendy, we probably, sadly, may have just been like, well, that's, or not even thought about it at all. Mm-hmm. But because there was this platform there, we were kind of like, let's call Domino's on our way to the restaurant, get them to order, deliver a pizza so that, she's got something to eat if she gets hungry. And so we're seeing parents behave in better ways on the platform. And then we're also seeing Wendy's just blow parents' minds doing very simple stuff that I think historically they haven't done. So in my years as a parent prior to Wendy, a babysitter just never washed my dishes. Even if there were just 2 dishes that my kids had eaten off of, they tended to end up where the kids left them. Mm-hmm. And so we're seeing, Wendy's wash the dishes or fold the laundry or show up with, a watercolor set and paint with the kids. And these are really simple things, but they make the whole transaction, it's just such a better experience for the users. And so what I love seeing and hearing is, trying to sort of raise the experience for everyone involved and building a brand where, both sides of the platform get something of value that's in addition to just a body to watch my kids or, $50 to put in my bank account.
That's
there's more
so cool. And that's capitalism in action right there, is being better than the next Wendy, right? Mm-hmm. Because not because your grandmom's sister is going to say so, but because 8 other people who reviewed you, those are lasting impressions on your Wendy profile. And then from the parents' perspective, I guess it's Wendy Lives Matter, right? Treat these kids right? Because you are they reviewing parents as well? Does that happen?
Yeah. So Wendy's have the opportunity to rate jobs as well. So
that's a question I had too, because they have more of an incentive. The parents do, like you said, to
people like Jonathan, they're gonna give him a 2.5. They didn't get a pizza.
Dude, they're gonna love my place. You got Scout there. Come on, man.
Scout is Jonathan's. How old is that dog? 8 months.
Yeah.
I think
he's getting big.
Wild. So for those of you who are out there thinking, one, I need to supplement some income, right? Or those of you who are out there like, wow, that was a really cool story. I want to dig into how the app works, learn more about it, how it could work for me, but also how, one, I love how you're challenging people to think about 2 sides of the coin, because you do have 2 different markets, peanut butter and jelly, right? And you're catering to both of those sides. And what you've done that's really tough, that a lot of people struggle with, is you're bringing both of those people up. You're driving much more than just pairing people together, man. I love that. So where can people find you, Tommy? What's the best place for them to find you and Wendy?
Yeah, so they can go to wendy.com, which is our website. All of our social media handles are Get Wendy. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, we're there. And folks are always welcome to reach out to me. I'm Tommy at wendy.com. So.
And what cities are you guys in currently?
So we're currently in Birmingham, Nashville, and Tuscaloosa, and we'll be launching Memphis, Chattanooga, Charlottesville, Virginia, and Mobile, Alabama on November 15th.
Stout. And at the time of this recording, that's only about 10 days away. So well done, my friend. Congratulations, Tommy. You've done awesome work, and we can't thank you enough for being here.
Yeah, man. Thanks a
Yeah,
lot.
it's been great. Thanks for having me.
Now check it out one time, I gotta show the dude. And if you love hip-hop, I'm about to fuck with you.
That was really good.
Have you thought about disrupting an industry like that? Like, I mean, he is changing the mess out of the way people perceive hiring a babysitter. And it is similar to Josh Heinem at Interact, who we interviewed several episodes ago.
Oh,
and that
yeah, for sure.
he was teaching his audience prior to them even understanding and grasping this idea, right? And even you as a father think, oh my gosh, I don't know if this is all good per se.
Oh, yeah.
So like you're still learning that that's okay.
Was it you? Someone, it might have been Tommy himself, that had a friend that when Uber came around and was like,
Yeah,
So
it was Tommy.
yeah, so a stranger's going to come to my house and pick me up, or, come to the bar or wherever and pick me up in their personal car.
Right.
Like, I'm not really sure about that. And so I'll be honest, I'll be perfectly honest. The other day when I was looking for a babysitter, it's still like, so a girl I've never met is going to come watch
But
my
it's
kid.
so much safer than almost anything out there. Tommy is like going through so much rigmarole just to get background checks to make sure these people are safe. Like,
and I believe that, and I think
It's
this app is
incredible.
gonna, like you said, it is the future.
this is absolutely the way of the future today. And you
Exactly.
got to commend this guy. He is not from Silicon Valley, right? He does not have a background in coding and app
Oh, that's
creation
awesome.
and web dev. He knew nothing about that. But he went out of his comfort zone and got into that world and found who he needed to find to help and outsource what he needed to outsource. And now here he is creating jobs,
Oh yeah.
and making parents better. They're not babysitters.
Well, they're making them having a more enjoyable experience for the whole babysitting side of things,
Right.
anyway. Where I know a lot of people. As a matter of fact, my wife. So Tamara has a business partner that here in a little while they want to do a Christmas dinner at one of the nice restaurants around here. And one of their things was, hey, do you want to do it on this date? Because they seem to already have a babysitter on that date. And Tamara and I just honestly weren't ready to do it then. But for them, it's like, well, we have a babysitter. This is so hard to happen.
Your life revolves
So we've got to
around
do
that.
it this night because that's the night we can have a babysitter. And so I think, like Will's saying, it's just the tweaking of once you teach these parents how to use this, just like Uber and anything else that was created that way, it's just going to explode.
Well,
and I'm excited about it.
And keep in mind, Tommy's doing very similar things. He's getting incentives for people to use the app. When Uber first
yeah.
came out, it's like, hey, get 5 free rides or whatever.
For
and,
sure.
And then you realize after those, whoa, this is so much better than a cab. It's so much better than driving. Like, of course I'm going to get Uber.
Oh, yeah.
What I love even more about Tommy's story is the fact that he learned what his market wants through that Facebook community, through that Facebook group. He realized, okay, this is a good like launch pad. I like kind of what's going on, but I also know the pains and like what people are looking for and what I could do better. And he used that as a free beta group.
Oh, yeah.
People
that's-
pay hundreds, if not thousands, tens of thousands for these large corporations to do beta groups like that. Tommy just utilized simple logic and was in a Facebook community and dug through it and found what people wanted. It's that easy.
He just saw what was in front of him and said, hey, I can use this.
In today's world, don't forget what's in front of you. Like, don't have those blinders on and forget what's in front of you.
Yeah, and one last thing I want to say about Tommy is, and this is obviously a theme with entrepreneurs and just about anybody we interview, but it's just so blatantly obvious in his case that you see a problem and you go out there and you create the solution. I mean, he and his wife had a problem. The traditional way of babysitting wasn't working for them, just like it's not working for hundreds of thousands of other parents out there. And he just said, you know what? I think I can create a solution. And he did it. Like, that is just so blatantly obvious. And I know that's the way that entrepreneurs are and how businesses get started. But I just wanted to highlight that for him. You know, I was just so blown away of just how he was just like, man, I can do this. And like you said, he doesn't have a tech background.
No,
I
but
mean,
that was not an excuse.
He just went out and did it.
Simplicity. He got out of his comfort zone, though, and I want to end on this for you guys because I don't want you to underestimate yourself, and I really don't want you to be afraid to get out there and do something. On a serious note, earlier today on LinkedIn, I posted something today happened to me, and I really felt that it was important to share. And I've gotten some love, and so I want to read it to you, and I want you to give me some love or hate if that's your thing. Hey, that's cool. Criticism's cool too. But I want to read this out to you in ending. It felt like a punch in the gut. It was a low blow, and it was a catastrophic way to end a Monday. I remember asking the guy, "Do you think it'll be successful?" He replied, "Have you ever even been in front of a microphone? Have you interviewed anyone successful and anyone live? Are you sure you can even pull this off?" So this conversation happened. This is a real conversation. It happened over 5 months ago. The questions this guy left me with were challenging all of my capabilities. They were doubting me. But rather than quit, I remembered all 3 of those questions verbatim. I wrote them down. I read them daily. I faced them hourly. Each of those 3 questions forced me out of my comfort zone, and I drug you with me, Jonathan.
You did.
And I eventually discovered we enjoyed life there. Today, I got an email in my inbox with the subject reading, quote, "good work," end quote. That was it. The email was from the same doubter, that naysayer of my past. I thanked him, not for the compliment, but for the motivation. Magic is created outside of your comfort zone. It's never created inside of it. Do you agree?
I agree.
If you agree, send us an email at millennovator@gmail.com. Like I always say, that email address is going to be good 16 months from now, 16 years from now. That email will always be redirected to where we are, and you can find us. Do you agree that magic is created outside of your comfort zone? If so, send us an email at millennovator@gmail.com. I want to hear where your magic is made. Until next time,
Get after it.
see ya in episode 17, friends. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to call your mother and tell that woman that you love her. And if you love the show almost as much, subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a sweet review. We're definitely not ashamed to blush. Now, go forward and implement what you learned from today's episode into your business. We cannot wait to personally hear your story of success and replicate it 1,000 times over.
Give me the right,